Recently, Lane Flowers tweeted that some Calvinists are being inconsistent by affirming conditional damnation and an unconditional salvation. Firstly, it's not some Calvinists, but rather all Calvinists hold to a conditional damnation. The Reformed have always confessed that God does not damn men apart from consideration of sins. Let's look at the Reformed confessions themselves, which define Calvinism. This is from the Westminster Confession of Faith. The rest of mankind God was pleased to pass by, and to ordain them to dishonor and wrath for their sin to the praise of his glorious justice. Here's the canons of Dort. Some only are elected, while others are passed by in the eternal decree, whom God, permitting them in his just judgment to follow their own ways, at last for the declaration of his justice, to condemn and perish them forever, not only on account of their unbelief, but also for all their other sins. Now let's look at the conclusions of Dort, where they list views that they are repulsed by and do not acknowledge as their own. That the same doctrine that teaches that God, by a mere arbitrary act of his will, without the least respect or view to any sin, has predestined the greatest part of the world to eternal damnation and has created them for this very purpose. Many other things of the same kind, which the Reformed churches not only do not acknowledge, but even detest with their whole soul. This is clearly the Reformed position. Anyone holding otherwise is going beyond orthodoxy. As for the objection that Calvinists are inconsistent for holding to an unconditional salvation and a conditional damnation, the confusion lies on his part, as the Reformed do not hold that salvation is unconditional. Salvation is conditioned upon faith, and damnation is conditioned upon sin. What is unconditional is election, which is the choice of God to, at his appointed time, bestow the gift of faith to the elect. Preterition is the flip side of that. Dort says it is God's decree to leave the non-elect in common misery into which they willfully plunge themselves, and not to bestow them the gift of faith and grace of conversion, but permitting them in his just judgment to follow their own ways. So the internal critique of inconsistency doesn't work. Jacob was elected to receive the gift of faith, while Esau was passed by in this election, as God had a special love for Jacob and Esau was loved less. This choice of God was unconditional, but the contrast to election is not damnation, but preterition, the passing by. And election is the choice to give people faith that they may be saved. So the elect are saved by their faith, while the non-elect are damned on account of sin. No inconsistency. Leighton apparently was misinformed as a former Calvinist.